Kia ora koutou. Good morning, everybody. So I thought we might start this morning just by learning a little bit of Māori. So I'm going to teach you how to say hello. So we're going to say kia ora with a rolled R. Do you want to say it with me? Kia ora as one word. Kia ora with force, mucho. Kia ora. Once more. Kia ora. Okay, so we'll stop there. If you would like to learn how to do the haka kamate, then my friends over here, this is how to go. So thank you for having me here, and it's a pleasure to speak to you all this morning. I'm Duane. I'm from New Zealand. I'm from Land Information New Zealand, which is a government department that is charged with providing mapping support for New Zealand. So we have a single goal in my role, and that is to grow the use and value of geospatial information tenfold. We're a small country. As you can see, the few of us that are here today, we traversed a third of the planet over ocean to get here. We're fairly remote. We don't have any roads or bridges to Australia. So we think that by growing the use of geospatial information, we can support our economy to grow and make the most of the unique aspects of our country. So I started this project with others after a few trips up to the east coast of the North Island. And you can see there, it's about 10 hours drive from Wellington, which is where I live, down here at the point. And usually you can get a flight to Gisborne, but then it's a further 3 hours drive to the east coast. And there's some very remote schools there. Half of the schools are full Māori immersion schools. That means they only speak Māori. And the other half of the schools are a mixture of both Māori and English. But they're very, very remote from a New Zealand context. So we thought it would be fantastic to go there, visit them, and do some interesting things using geospatial tools like MyMaps and Google Earth. So what was the challenge? What was the problem we were trying to solve? Well, when I was at the Department of Conservation, we wanted to engage students in conservation mapping projects, get them outside, get them engaged in their community. In some of these remote communities, there's very little for teenagers to do. And so they sort of revert to maybe destructive ways. I know it myself. I was raised in a small town. There's really nothing to do in those small towns. We also wanted to use technology to capture students' interest in both conservation and also in technology. And also, one of my goals is to introduce them to GIS and mapping as a potential career path. And hanging out with them from Tech Corner 2 yesterday, just on the phone, that was a pretty unique experience for both me and for them, talking with them from Google. But rather than trying to convince adults all the time, what you're doing is we're taking a small amount of our time and we're trying to spark imagination at the student level so that in 10 years' time they already have some awareness of what geospatial information is. So a virtual field trip. Well, unfortunately we couldn't use Google Cardboard because in most schools, all schools, cell phones are banned. Or if you do bring a cell phone, you've got to put it in a special cupboard. So children are discouraged from having Facebook accounts and from having cell phones in the classroom. So we had to look at alternative ways to bring the reality to those remote schools. So we decided to do these 3-day field trips. And along the way, we would bring other students with us. So to do a 3-day field trip, you need to have a local organizer. You need to have the support of local teachers and students, and not an entire class, maybe just a few. You need to have a dedicated presenter and a dedicated videographer. And then there's people like me providing the technical mapping support. And then we also used local subject matter experts that we involve with the geotechnology, but also use their local knowledge to create interviews that students can watch later in the day. So what are the infrastructure parts that you need to run a virtual field trip if you wanted to do one yourself? You need a website, you need to advertise it, and not necessarily paid for advertising, but start the marketing as early as possible. Just this week, we've announced our next virtual field trip for next year. We're going up to Taranaki, so we're going to the other side of the island. Every morning we have web conferences, and these are audio conferences arranged beforehand with students able to ask us questions directly, and we give them the answers on the fly. We also do about 4 or 5 video interviews a day on a variety of different topics, and if you'd like to see one, we've got the session after this at the education breakout session. We provide students with background reading, and there's also, we do a daily diary mind map. And you can see the picture here is just showing you kind of a taste of how we plan out those days. Which Google tools do we use? We use My Maps and Earth.Google now. Initially, we started using Google Earth desktop, but a lot of students have Chromebooks. And so Earth in the browser is just so much easier. But why do we use Google? It's simple to use, easy to learn. They pretty much all already have a login, so they can save their work. It works at scale. So if you've got a large classroom hitting a server, not a strong internet connection, it's still going to work. It's going to save their work, generally. And so you saw yesterday with, about 150 of us, hitting that My Map in the competition. A few of us were having issues, but 99% of the time it worked. I've got 4 kids. When I go to teach them to drive a car, I don't sit them down and show them a 30-minute PowerPoint. I go, here's the keys, get in the car, don't crash. And we just get into it. So one thing I've learned with students is that forget about the introduction stuff, they just want to get on with it. On our virtual field trips, we teach students how to take 360 photospheres, not always how to publish them, they figure that out for themselves, and how to import the GPS data and bring it into My Maps. Because we also wanted to teach them about GPS and global positioning systems, and many of the students weren't even aware that there was an International Space Station. That was quite a buzz when I said, well, actually, it's going over at 6:30 tonight. Who wants to go and see it? And so it's just little things like that that can really add to the classroom learning experience. Here's an example of a field trip, the third day that we did. So the first day we mapped around the area. The second day we mapped some environmental issues. And the third day we went and had a look at an archaeological site. And so this is just an example of the kind of data that they captured. And the kinds of things that really got, particularly some of the male students, get very distracted quite easily. They sort of lose interest. Having pictures of muskets and things like that really got them inspired. Running short on time. Just a 3D view in Earth. An example of one of the surveys that we did. We take the GPS out and the guys do some maths. So success for me is the number of students that we're able to engage using technology. In August, we did one trip of 4,000, and then we did a second trip with 3,000 students following us. So for me, that was pretty neat. So lessons learned, well, you're going to have to come to the education session. But I learnt my lesson the hard way. Thank you.